So I thought that I would finish telling my story today. Um, Today's actually the 2-year mark of when I began passing out 2 years ago today, and just it's crazy to think that this is something I've been doing now for 2 years, and so a lot of my friends and my classmates, they are freaked out by this. And wow, the lighting's really bad. I'm sorry. Um, but for me, turn it a little bit. For me, it's normal. I think I just need a shirt that says I pass out. That's what I do. Um, I'm not sure how that would go over, but so I started passing out 2 years ago today, but I wasn't actually diagnosed with POTS until about 6 months after that, after I started passing out. And this journey for me has been like a wild roller coaster ride. I don't know how else to explain it. I have my good days and I have my horrible days where I just can't get out of bed. Um, or all I can do is crawl to get water, and then I crawl back to bed and just collapse. Um, but it's hard to be that person. I think um, I don't I don't want to be that person. I want to continue my life how it was 2 years ago, how I was enjoying school. I'd still enjoy school, but I was playing on the UREC volleyball teams and all that, but I can't do that now. And it's really hard. Um, the first 6 months or so that I was diagnosed with POTS, um, it wasn't bad. My POTS, um, and the dysautonomia, it just didn't get bad until um, I'd say about 8 or 9 months ago is when it really got really bad. The first 6 months I had it or so, it was not much different. I still went to school. I was still able to do a lot of things. I wasn't passing out, but maybe once every like 3 or 4 weeks. Um, it wasn't bad at all, and people wouldn't think that I was sick at all if I told them. My professors were like, "Well, okay, whatever," um, but it wasn't a big deal. Last spring, I guess it's what, February 11th now, um, of 2011, March of 2000 and, no, February of 2010, I got really, really sick. No one could figure out what it was. It was during the spring semester, and I missed almost the entire first half of the spring semester up until spring break. I was there maybe once or twice a week. Um, it was really hard for me, and I was trying to keep up with class, but at the same time, I was proving that I wasn't letting being sick keep me from doing what I wanted. Um, and finally, one day, I was just so sick that I ended up going to the hospital, and I was like, something has to happen. Something has to be fixed. Come to find out, it was just my gallbladder, and it wasn't anything else. And so I had surgery, and that was just rough. Um, After surgery, I was bedridden for a week. I couldn't stand up. My heart rate got so high. Um, and before all this, my resting heart rate would be like 120. When I would go to the doctor, and no one really thought anything about it. And finally, about a year and a half ago, I was like, I need to see a cardiologist about this. Something's not right. And that's when I ended up being diagnosed with POTS. But even with that really high heart rate, it was really hard because I learned how to function with a higher heart rate, but it wasn't working out the way it should. And then one day, it was the end of April, my heart rate would spike up into the 180s and I wouldn't have to do anything. That was scary. Like, yeah, I wouldn't have to do anything. I could just be laying in a bed and it would just start rising, and it was, for me, really scary. Um, and I would pass out more. So I ended up going to the ER about that as well, because I was like, something's not right, and I couldn't get into the cardiologist. And so that's when I first got put on any type of medicine for this. Before, it was just high sodium diet. I was already on medicines for migraines that they were saying would help with that as well. And so I just kind of went with it. And, sorry, I'm cold. And so that was the first time I had ever been put on a medicine for my heart rate. And I never noticed how much at that point that having a high resting heart rate and my heart rate spiking up actually affected my everyday life. Um, I felt like a whole new person afterwards, and my heart rate, I went to the doctor one day after this, and my heart rate was like 80, and the doctor was just like, wait, your heart rate's never been this low. And at that point I was just like, we're getting somewhere, and it's great. I was only on the medicines about a month, and my prescription had run out. Well, it wasn't a big deal. I made an appointment with the cardiologist to go back and get more of the medicines, and about a month and a half later, I hadn't been really taking the medicines. My heart rate had been low, and I hadn't been having spikes, and so I was just like, oh, I don't need this right now. The side effects were more of a problem, and so I kind of stopped. My glare is bad. I kind of stopped taking them, and I would take them when I would need them. And one day I noticed my heart rate was getting really low. And that was something I had never experienced in my life, and it kind of freaked me out. Um, it was like I caught it one day at like 45, and I was just like, I was at church when I noticed, and I was just feeling really lightheaded and tried not to pass out, and I was just like, something's not right with this picture. I don't understand at all. And so I went to the hospital, and I was admitted for it. They weren't sure what was going on. I had been in the ER twice that week because my heart rate was getting so high, and they had put me on heart monitors. And come to find out, I had been admitted on a Sunday, and so Monday morning, the cardiologist came to see me in the hospital. And I live in such a small town that the doctors in town actually visit you when you're in the hospital. You have, we have a bunch of hospitalists, but the doctors come in to see you as well. And so my cardiologist came in, and he was just like, well, your heart rate monitors come back. And we're like, okay, well, what's it say? And my heart rate had hit 188 and stayed that high for like 25 minutes. Um, and I wasn't doing anything at that point. I was actually just supposed to be like relaxing for the week. It was in the summer, so it wasn't a problem. I was taking summer classes, but I'd been so sick that I hadn't been going anyway. I was just not feeling well, and I wasn't really taking my medicines at that point very often. And come to find out that the heart rate monitor also was catching pauses in my heart rate, and my heart rate had been in the 30s for like 10 and a half hours in the 48 hours I was wearing it, and the lowest it had gotten was like 32. And I read that and I was like, what? It kind of freaked me out a little bit. So they ended up sending me to a new cardiologist about 2 hours away, who specialized in um, it's called tachybrady syndrome, but essentially it's where your heart rate gets fast and it gets slow, and did that again. Sorry. I was sent to him for the possibility of a pacemaker because the doctors decided at this point that I cannot have medicines for a high heart rate um, if my heart rate's dropping the way it is. And I was just like, I'm 23 years old. I don't want a pacemaker. What? Wait. So I went to see him the middle of last summer, and he's was a great doctor, and he was just like, I don't want to do a pacemaker in you, and I was like, dude, you're my friend. And so he's like, we're just gonna play this by ear and see what happens.